Hello everyone, this is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Now this is our Harmony sample blanket from 2018. We finished all 12 stitches and today I'm just going to show you the trim that I chose to put on mine. Now you can use any trim on yours that you want to. I tried to keep it simple and yet pretty. We're going to do a row of single crochet, we're going to do a row of half double crochets, and then this simple little lacy chain trim. The main thing I want to talk to you about is how to add stitches on the side of a blanket that can come off just a little bit uneven because some of our rows are single crochets, some of them are half, some of them are double, depending on the stitch that we chose to use for that particular stitch. And so it can be a little bit confusing, and we're going to talk about that as well as just show you what I did on my blanket. Now this, like the rest of the Harmony sample blanket patterns, can be found on my blog, and I'll put the link for both the trim and the page that has all the stitches and videos on it. I'll put that link underneath this video. To do the trim on my blanket, I stayed with my worsted weight number 4 yarns. These are all Red Heart Super Savers. And of course my sample blanket was all solids, and of course stick with whatever you were doing. If you were making your sample blanket in cottons, make sure your trim is in cottons too. And also make sure you keep the same weight of yarn throughout your project, and that includes the trim. I'm using these 3 colors. This is like a light green, a yellow, and an orange. And I'm choosing these colors because they're bright and easy to see, but also I'm trying to get rid of a lot of my leftover scraps. And that's what this blanket is also good for. We're going to be using an H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. And I've been using an H hook for my entire project, and the same thing for you. Whatever you've done your project in, make sure you use the same size hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in ends, and of course you'll need your scissors. I'm going to be using this sample swatch that I made last year when we were testing out some of the patterns that we wanted to use on the Harmony sample blanket. It's just a small swatch. What we're going to do is we're going to join our yarn to this stitch right on the corner of our work. Let me go ahead and pull this in, and when you've added rows, you want to make sure that you end over on this side because we're going to begin going down that rough edge. All right, so I've joined in, and I'm going to turn my work. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch evenly single crochets down the side of our blanket. When you do this for this, there is not a set stitch count. It has to all be done by how it looks because we've got all different kinds of stitches that we're working in. When you're stitching down the side of what I call a rough edge of a blanket or anything that you're making that has that rough edge, you want to try to make your stitches in the sides of the stitches, not the holes. And it can be a little bit more complicated because you have to find those stitches. You don't want to go in the holes, and the reason is you'll end up with bigger holes. We want to try to keep the holes small. All right? And the key to getting a nice even look is, like I said, going in those stitches, but also making sure that your stitches are close together. And you want to look at it because you don't want them so close they're all bunched up. But you also don't want them so far apart. Let me make one way over here. There we go. You also don't want them so far apart that you have holes in here or pulling. And so that's why I said there is no set amount of stitches. It's just the way that it should look. And as far as this blanket, this particular section is probably one of the more complicated, and you'll need to take a little bit more time. All right? So as I'm working down the side, I'm going in the sides of the stitches of the rows and stitching a single crochet. Now here I'm going to go in the hole because it's just a small hole. And here I can see I have some stitches, so I'm going in the stitch. And we want it to be nice and even, and it is difficult, so you're going to need to take your time because, like I said, you don't want them too bunched up because the side of your blanket will be ripply. And you don't want them too far apart or you get pulling and holes. All right, so I'm just going to continue working down the side of this blanket, stitching single crochets. Now, there might be times where you do want to put it in a hole, like that one. But you want to try, for the most part, and put your stitches in the sides of the stitches. And the single crochet row is just a base for us to stitch our trim on. And what I do is when I get to the end of this row, or this side, I should say, not the end of the row, I give it a look at. I think it looks pretty good. I like the evenness of it. I don't have any gaping holes, and it's not rippling all up on me. So I'm going to turn my work, and then in this corner where we stitch that one stitch, we're going to stitch 2 more. And you want to have 3 single crochets in each corner. And what this does is it just helps it move around that corner nice and smoothly. And now we're at the bottom here where we began our beginning chain. And that's relatively simple because you can put a stitch in each of those beginning chains. So really, only the 2 sides are the hard part because we're putting stitches in those beginning chains across, and then when we get to the other side, we'll have to work up the same way we did over here, and then when we get to the top, we can just stitch right across. All right, so I'm going to continue working across this bottom of my swatch, which would be the bottom of your blanket, until I get to the corner. 1 single crochet in each of those chains across. Because remember, this was our beginning chain where we began our blanket. So I've come to the corner. I've got 1 stitch in there, and I'm going to stitch 2 more so that I have 3 in that corner. 3 single crochets, and again, that just makes it move smoothly around the corner. And now I'm going to repeat on this side what I did on this side and just stitch an even row of single crochets. Now, if you want to count how many you did on this side over here and make sure you get the same amount on this side, you certainly can do that. And that will make it lay probably a little bit more even. But like I said, there is not a set amount of stitches that you need to place. That's why a lot of times you'll see in the pattern where it says evenly crochet down the side of your work. All right, so I've done those 3 and I'm moving down to the next corner. I've completed the second side on this swatch, and now I'm in the corner again, and I've got 1 stitch there, and I'm going to stitch 2 more so that each one of my corners has 3 single crochets. And this last part is super easy because we can just place 1 single crochet in each of those stitches across the top where we stopped. Now, just one note, make sure that this is the top or the front of your blanket as well. And the way this blanket is stitched, because we went back and forth, it's not that noticeable whether it's the front or the back. But some of the places that it'll be noticed is maybe with your bobble stitches. And so that's why I say make sure that you're stitching on the front of your blanket. And if you make sure that you start on this corner, you should be on your front. Alright, so I'm just going to continue stitching single crochets across the top of my work, and then we'll go to the next row. I'm finishing up stitching across the top, and I have one stitch in that corner where we joined our yarn, and I'm going to stitch 2 more. And that gets us our 3 stitches in that corner. I'm going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to cut my yarn because I'm changing colors. If you're not changing colors, don't cut your yarn. Alright, I'm going to join in my orange. Snug that down. And we're just going to do a little chain 1 just to get us where we need to be. Alright, so now we're going to be working back down and all the way around the entire blanket. Yarn over, go in that first stitch, yarn over, and go through all 3 of those loops because we're stitching 1 half double crochet in each of the single crochets around. And what we're going to be doing is stitching 1 half double crochet in each single crochet. And when we get to the center single crochet of those 3, we'll stitch 3 half double crochets, and that'll get us around that corner. I like using half double crochets on the trim because it gives you a nice sturdy trim, and it's not real tall. I've half double crocheted across that side. I'm to the center single crochet of those 3 together, and I'm going to stitch 3 half double crochets. And again, this is just to get us around the corner nice and smoothly. And then we'll turn and stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the stitches around. And we'll repeat this on all the sides of our blanket. Half double crochet in each of the single crochets, and then 3 half double crochets in that second single crochet of those 3 so that we have 3 together. And that again is for the corner of our blanket. We'll repeat this all the way around, and then we'll join back up to our first half double crochet where we begin. I've stitched my half double crochets all the way around my swatch so that you can see the way that it looks. I've stitched those last 2 half double crochets in the same stitch as my first half double crochet. We're going to join to that first half double crochet with a slip stitch, and then I've already cut my yarn. We're going to bring in our 3rd color, and again, if you're not changing colors, you don't have to change colors. Alright, so I'm going to stitch just a little chain 1 there. And this next row is super duper easy. We're going to single crochet right in that first stitch. We'll chain 3. We'll skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next. And that's the way the last row of the trim works. We don't have to stitch 3 in the corners. We're just going to move on around the corners. 1, 2, 3 chains, skip the next, single crochet in the next. And it makes a really nice little trim. And also, I like the way that it almost makes the half double crochet row look like V-stitches. It just gives it a nice look. I really like it. It's a really simple trim that adds such a pretty edge. Alright, I'm going to move down to the corner so I can show you how to go around the corner. Chain 3, skip 1, single crochet in the next. Chain 3, skip 1, single crochet in the next. 3, single crochet, 1, 2, 3, skip 1, single crochet. Now I'm to the corner, and I'm going to show you what to do. we're not going to do like we did on the single crochet and the half double crochet row in stitch 3. We're just going to move on around. There's my single crochet, 1, 2, 3. Skip the next and single crochet in the next. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next and single crochet in the next. And see how that just moves around the corner nicely? Because we've already got it all set up for a nice even corner with those 3 and 3, we don't have to do anything with this row. And that's what we'll do all the way around. We'll single crochet, skip 1, chain 3, single crochet, skip that one, chain 3, single crochet, all the way around our whole blanket. And it makes a really, really beautiful edge. So I've done my trim all the way around my swatch so you can see how that looks. And I'm back to this corner, but for some reason I have 2 stitches. And the reason is we didn't count our stitches on the sides. And it's not that big of a deal because it's just 1 or 2 stitches. And so don't get yourself all uptight if you have 2 stitches left. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do our chain 3. And then we'll just go ahead and join right to that first single crochet in that corner, and it just pulls it over. All right, and that's just what you do just to make it even out. I'm going to cut my yarn, tie that off, and now I need to weave in all these ends because I changed colors 3 times. So here is the trim completed on my swatch, and this is the way that it should look. A row of single crochets, a row of half double crochets, and then our fun little chain trim. It's one of my favorite trims, and I think it adds just a little pizzazz to the blanket. And here is the trim on my actual Harmony sample blanket. My single crochet row. This purple is the half double crochet row. And then, of course, the cranberry is that trim. And it looks very pretty on this blanket. And so that's the end of our Harmony sample blanket for 2018. Now I want to encourage you to be watching because we have a brand new crochet along for 2019. It's going to be called the Grand-tastic crochet along for 2019. And we're going to learn the basics of granny squares all the way up to some more complicated granny squares. There'll be a square each month, and then at the end of the year, we'll make it into a blanket. So be watching for that.